Hi again guys, and welcome back to another video with your boy CM. Today we're looking at a new premium tank that has been added. This is going to be a little tank review for you guys, my thoughts on this new tank, and the marathon that you can earn it in, or at the very least, get yourself a discount in. I'll go for the marathon first. So, you get 10 stages to it, they're all missions. And you've got two ways of finishing them, either through grinding out base XP on any tank from tier 6 to tier 10, and your other option is playing either tier 9 or 10 and trying to get some more difficult requirements but fewer of them. So things like coming top of your team on the scoreboard overall, or doing at least 4200 damage over multiple matches, or coming top of your team on damage. And there's a couple of different requirements that it alternates between, with increasing number of times you have to do those requirements per mission. So, this tank, I'm going to start off with the stats. I'm going to start off with the gun, work my way over to mobility, health, and so on, and then look at the armor. And then I'll show you guys one of the better matches that I had, and also shows how I feel this thing works best. So I'm going to start off with the gun, and this is going to be the single most disappointing thing about this tank. Yes, hello, starting off on a good stretch already. The DPM, not good. You can see right there, 1430 base DPM. Really not good. You do hit for 400 average damage, and you have good pen of 233mm base APCR pen. And yeah, your reload time without any equipment or anything, 16.78 seconds. That's not good at all, even for 400 damage. That's a lot slower than even the T-34, the American Tier 8 Premium Heavy, and slower than the T-34-3, one of the other Chinese premium medium tanks. Except that one only has 10 alpha damage less, and has preferential matchmaking, which sure has less pen than this tank, but yeah, can hit a lot more often. Anyway, moving on to the gun handling, and this is actually something this tank does really well. This is a very accurate gun. I generally find this hits pretty much where you want it to most of the time. You will get the odd shot here or there that'll derp, but otherwise, pretty accurate gun. 2.21 second base aim time, 0.32 base dispersion, and your soft stats are not too bad. So actually, I do not run vert stabs on this at the moment, and I don't feel like I need to in most situations where this tank works well. And also, the APCR has very good shell velocity, 1368 meters a second velocity on the APCR. You do also have heat pen, which is your premium ammo of 299mm, which has a velocity of 907 meters a second, and then your HE has 62mm of pen for an extra 115 alpha damage, so 515 alpha damage on the HE. And although the HE is a bit potato in terms of shell velocity, it flies at 722 meters a second, as you can see there. Mobility is just okay. It kind of feels a bit more like a heavy tank in terms of its forward mobility. It does turn relatively quickly, however, and 50 kilometers an hour top speed forwards, 15 in reverse. The reverse speed is very nice for getting back into cover after firing if you've poked around a corner or if you've poked over a ledge, anything like that. Gun depression and gun elevation, really nice. 15 degrees of elevation, nothing special on that, but it's the 8 degrees of gun depression that makes this thing feel pretty flexible to me. We'll get onto the armor in a bit. Obviously it says 120 frontal on the hull, 80 side, 50 rear, but we'll get into that shortly. And then of course 280 on the front of the turret, 140 side, 70 rear, 20mm of track armor. We'll get back to that when we go to the armor. 1400 health, which is not bad at all for a tier 8 medium, so decent slug of hit points. Module health I'm not going to bother with because module damage system I feel is absolutely broken as hell. I feel it doesn't really work the way I feel it should for this game. But that's a whole another thing for another video. Base view range is a little on the low side, to be honest. This is something, one of the things that I'll go over as to why I feel this tank could do with actually a buff later on. But you've got 370 meters base view range. Now I'm going to show you guys what I kitted out with. So I kitted out with vents in the first slot to give that a little boost. Currently I am running Bond optics, but obviously if you run normal optics you can still get a reasonable boost to view range as well. There we go, put those in there. And I also run a gun rammer. I am running the bounty rammer. I'm also going to put on, I also put on food, so I'm going to show you guys what that's like. So if I put on the view range skills first, so if I do brothers in arms and the view range skills, you can get yourself a decent view range there. And then that's with food, of course. So if I take that, oh, nothing, there we go. So you can still get over the maximum spotting distance and a little extra that'll take a couple of percent off of camo, but not a lot. So keep in mind that this tank is not going to be particularly good at spotting things if you're running normal equipment. If you are running Bond equipment, however, you can see that if you do that, and if you run food, yeah, you get a pretty good view range. Now I'm going to put on the bounty rammer so then I can show you guys exactly what my setup is. You can see there that the reload goes down to 13.4 seconds. You can get this lower if you use a Bond rammer as well, but that only brings it down to about 13.1. So yeah, just a touch under 17. Sorry, a touch under 1800 DPM. But let me show you that right here as well. Just over, in fact. There we go, 1811. So 13.25 second reload with that. And of course, if you happen to have Bond, anything else, you can also bring it down even more. If you have bounty vents, in fact, so if I put those on there, that gives you a better bonus than using normal vents in the boosted slot. There we go, 13.17 second reload, but that's still quite long for 400 alpha damage. So yeah. What I will do before I go is, before I switch over to the armor, is I'll show you what it looks like with vert stabs, just regular old vert stabs in the first slot there, over vents. So brings down your soft stats quite a bit, but at the same time, because of the aim time dispersion already being pretty good, even with these soft stats, this gun feels pretty quick to aim. You won't be hanging around too long, and it does actually snapshot reasonably well. So you'll find that also is pretty nice. Moving on to the armor now. So you can see that the front of the turret here is indeed 280. It's all rounded, it's all sloped. Now this is based on its effectiveness versus APCR, because what tanks.gg does is it bases its calculations on the type of ammo that you use. So you can see that the upper plate is 120 millimeters, and against APCR it's about 200 to 220 effective front on, like that, and the lower plate are between 190 and 200. Now the side armor, 80 millimeters, is very, very effective. You do even have a little bit of spaced armor. If I go to the collision model, you can see that right there, 30 millimeters of spaced armor. However, this is not magic black hole spaced armor like you see on the IS-3 and Object 703 heavy tanks. This side armor will absorb the occasional heat shell or HE. It's not bad against those, but as you can see, because of the side is basically flat, unlike the IS-3 and the 703, there is no angled section immediately behind that. It's just basically just all flat. So yeah, you're not really going to be protected much if you're basically flat on, whereas those tanks, they can actually absorb shells that way because of the armor being angled directly behind those. Speaking of angling, if you angle the hull, then against APCR you can expect between 210 and 240 millimeters of effective armor, depending where the enemy hits. on the upper plate, and the lower plate between 210 and 230 as well. Now the side armor, I'm going to show you guys what an auto bounce angle looks like for when you're side scraping. You want to be at this angle. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in a tank now in this comparison, because this is something neat that tanks.gg lets me do. In the comparison, I select a tank that fires AP as standard. I'm going to take the Tiger 2. This fairly average pen for the tier for a heavy, about 220. So let's take that. Now you can see that at this angle, against AP, the side armor is all a ricochet, and this is also the case against APCR. There is a tiny little single pixel right here that you can see, but people are never gonna hit that, maybe like 1 in a million. So keep that in mind as well. Now, against AP, in fact, AP does make your armor less effective on the hull. This applies to heat as well. Heat is gonna chew through your non-spaced parts of your armor a lot more as well. And if you're side scraping, do bear in mind that against heat you have to be a little tighter for your angle, because heat has less of it has a much more forgiving auto bounce angle of 80 degrees rather than 70. So if I'm angled like this, you can see the upper plate now against AP. Yeah, that's another like almost 20 to 30 millimeters less effective overall. If we go front on, remember how I was saying it's about 190 to 220? Well, no, not so much against AP. 187 to 200 is your max on your upper plate, and your lower plate, again, 180 to 190. So bear in mind that if an enemy tank is firing AP, you are much more susceptible to them penning your hull than with APCR. So, moving on to the cupolas, because let's face it, basically the entire turret front is a no-go for basically anything except the highest pen rounds. You know, like your 340 pen heat rounds, your 330 pen heat rounds, like your tier 9s and 10s, and anything higher, so like the Jagdpanzer and the super high APCR pen from the E4 and the T110 E3 at that tier. But you're not always going to fight anyway in this thing. So, your cupolas, they look fairly large on the visual model, so if we go over to that. Now, they do look fairly large. However, if we go over to the collision model, and look at these cupolas, they're not actually that massive. They're not really any bigger than the 112 or WZ5A cupolas, which are a tier 8 and tier 10 heavy tank. Tier 8 tank, premium heavy tank, and then a tier 10 one. So, what are these? They're not particularly effective. 160 to 170 on most parts that people are going to be shooting. So expect the occasional lower tier tank to bounce off your cupolas, like your tier 6s. But a lot of your tier 7s and up shouldn't have too much trouble. There are some angles where tanks will just auto bounce anyway though, so keep that in mind. I didn't have many people actually succeed in hitting these when I was playing it on Friday on stream for about 4 hours. Did have a couple, but when people aimed at them I generally found they hit the rest of the turret first anyway, especially when using the gun depression. Anyway, moving on to the match. So, what we've got for you here, this is a match on Lakeville. And I'm going to be showing you guys exactly what I feel is the best situation for this tank in terms of how you should play it and in terms of a way it does well. You can basically farm damage and support your team at the same time. Because in the end, the way this tank works, it's a support tank. It's not a brawler, not fast enough to scout. They can have peak ridges here and there, it can be flexible with positions, but you want to stick near your team most of the time. So I'm just going to speed it up, so we're going to go into the city. Some of my team's going to go into the valley. So almost a 50-50 split in terms of where my team is going, but that's fine. So right here, I'm going to knock these couple of trees down here. I'm just going to slow this down so you can see. And this one like this. Now this will be because later on I'll actually get this position correct in terms of where I'm sitting. And so what you can actually do is you can spot people coming down that road that I'm aiming at, and then you can pull back and shoot them. But I'm actually doing this wrong at this split second right here. So you will see that I'll actually re-angle after trying to shoot an enemy 53 TP. There's that guy. So did I take the shot at him? It only hits the tracks. He spotted me there. And then enemy heavy of some sort tries to shoot me. I think that was the IS-3 on the enemy team. Yep, there he is. Then I re-angle here. Now I can spot, and there's a little bush I can shoot through the arches where I can spot them, but they can't see me, but I can still shoot through the bushes and the trees that have not been knocked down between me and them. Little unlucky with that shot. It derps into the wall. As you can see, when we're aiming here, we do have part of the wall and the pillars in the reticle. But what we can do here now as well is we can pull behind this bush at this angle and shoot through a bush and a tree to get another shot on that IS-3. So this is kind of where you want to be. You want your head to be supporting tanks like your heavies, and or just your team in general, from a position where you're fairly safe to just pull back and reload, regardless of if you get spotted or not, and just trying to keep those shots firing out as much as you can, because you do have a long reload. Now I say heavies because those tanks can obviously take a hit. They can bounce shots. You will struggle to do so. Tanks like that IS-3, 220 AP pen will have no trouble with the hull on this tank whatsoever. Unfortunately, I only hit tracks with that shot, but we will get another shot soon enough on him. He's poking again, take the shot, lower plate. Friendly 50 TP finishes him off. Gonna go for the reload here and finish off that 53 TP as well. He's making a bit of a mistake. Friendly VK100 is gonna track him in place for us, and we finish him. Now we notice that the enemy IS-5 is in a bit of an open position, so we're gonna now rotate right and try and finish him as well. You also want to be taking every opportunity to take out low health tanks, because the fewer guns that are in the match to try and stop you from reloading, the better. Now that is an interesting shot actually. That goes into the turret ring when I looked. So I looked at this match on Tanks GG. That actually, oh sorry, not on Tanks GG, on Battle Hits, because I used the Battle Hits mod in my garage. According to Battle Hits, that actually hit the turret ring, and that was a pen. Interesting thing is the IS-5 armor. It's a Clan Wars reward tank, and I think sometimes you can buy it for bonds. Not that great. It's like a prototype T10 almost, but nowhere near as effective. So we're just gonna speed it up now while we try and cross over. Our team are winning the valley at this point as well, or at least holding them off. And we're gonna get into a somewhat hold down position here, because interesting thing about this tank is that because it is low profile, being, you know, that kind of Chinese Soviet style, you know, low profile rounded turret design, you can sit like this and be hold down against that rock over there, just past where we shot that, oh, just in front of where we shot that arty. And you're gonna see this SU-130 pop up in that bush right there. There he is. He shoots our Scorpion. We are actually hold down against him, so it didn't even matter if he tried to shoot us, because we were fairly safe here. Trying to angle for shots on the Kanonen Jagdpanzer right here, or potentially the Basante. We see our G-Sor get shot. That was the Borsig. There he is, right next to the Kanonen. Take a shot at the Borsig just to try and get him out of the match quickest. We don't kill him, but one of our team is going to. There we go. Our Scorpion finishes him off. The Kanonen gets another shot on our G-Sor. And now I'm trying to look for angles on either the G-Sor, no sorry, not G-Sor, the Kanonen or the Basante. We see the Basante there. He's hiding in that little spot. He had been spotted already, so we knew he was there. And that thing is an actual pain to fight with this tank. We aim for a part of the turret that doesn't have spaced armor. Now that was a 50-50 on pen, does not go through. So I start loading the heat here. That tank is so annoying to pen. Fortunately for us, his return shot only tracks us, and that goes through the side of the turret. The spaced armor on that turret on the side doesn't really stop heat rounds all that well, but on the upper plate of the Basante and on the turret front, yeah, you're gonna struggle with those. The lower plate will go through with APCR or heat, no trouble though. But the turret and the upper plate on the Basante, very annoying. We actually aimed for the lower plate and hit the upper plate there, so a little unfortunate for us. But we're not going to get the chance to kill him with the next reload, so we're going to put one more shot into the enemy Chrysler, and then our team are going to finish him off there. There we go. So this match was just under 4k damage there. You can see 13,981 with 230 assistance and 3 kills. Now, this was a showcase of essentially one of the more ideal situations for this tank. Being close to your team, not necessarily in a position where you're guaranteed to not get spotted, but a position where you can very easily keep your gun firing, as well as potentially being able to maneuver to be able to start using your armor to side scrape, or in some situations go hull down if you need to. Remember, this tank, being a medium, doesn't have as many hit points as some of the heavies, so you shouldn't really be trying to take shots, like take hits with this thing until the very, very end, when hit points do matter a little more. Your gun, obviously, very high pen, so you can run mostly APCR in this. In fact, I don't actually run any HE on this anymore. I know I had some this match, but I actually eventually just added those 2 HE to the APCR stock. So this tank only gets 30 shells, and I feel like if you want to be earning money consistently, you want to be carrying mostly APCR with some heat, because you will get into tier 10 matches, and there are a couple of tier 9s that are still a bit of a pain to pen, like the Motion and the VK4502B and the E75, and even the Polish tier 9 heavy. In fact, the 50TP is a bit of a pain to pen with the standard APCR, so having some heat is a good thing in this tank. I usually carry 12 at the moment, and then everything else is APCR. So it can make some decent credits because you've got a good APCR pen. And although this tank, just do not try and brawl with it. You don't have the armor for that. Unless you're fighting like tier 6s, you could brawl most tier 6s in a lot of situations. They will very much struggle to pen you. And there are a couple that shouldn't have much trouble penning you, like the Nashorn, because you get the odd tank destroyer at that tier that has high pen, but for the most part, you should be okay against tier 6s and most tier 7s as well. And just keep in mind that you do not have much DPM, so you don't want to be getting into a knife fight with anything, because you'll get out DPM'd by basically everything. So really, you want to be kind of taking people on at a distance. You don't need to be too far away from them. You know, you could fight someone from like 300 to 400 meters away and keep them spotted as well. And ideally, you want to be poking over hull down positions using your 8 degrees of gun depression to facilitate that. Now, my overall thoughts of this tank: is it a good tank? Sadly, no. This is kind of mediocre at best. You'll probably get frustrated here and there with the long reload if you bounce or miss. The mobility is nothing special, so it can't exactly whiz around the map when relocating. It's good enough to get you around, just if you have to run, you might want to consider doing it early before trying to risk taking another shot. And the lack of view range is also a bit of a sticking point. It does kind of limit your options when it comes to equipment choices. If this tank had 380 meters base view range, this tank would be a lot better. Because then what you could do is you could drop the vents for vert stabs, or you could, you could afford to not have food for all view range as well. So yeah, I kind of wish there was a couple of things that they would do with this tank, because it's not in a great place right now. One, I kind of feel like better DPM would be a good thing. Instead of nearly a 17-second base reload, maybe give it something like I don't know, like a 15-second reload base, like obviously before equipment. So like you could throw a rammer on and decrease that. You could, or you could even make it like a 14.5-second base reload. You know, give it something that's not a 70-second base reload, and we'll be fine. Like give it like maybe a what would equate to maybe like 300 more base DPM. Make it more like the Leva or the T-34 in terms of base DPM. Because the armor sure as hell doesn't really justify it having the lack of DPM. I also feel like having more base view range would be absolutely fine. It would still be balanced. And maybe a little more mobility. And yeah, because essentially this thing is a Chinese T-34. You take the American T-34, you give it 8 degrees of gun depression, and you make it Chinese. Except it has heat as premium ammo and APCR as standard. Yeah, that's basically it. So if you're interested in buying this tank, yes, it is a good credit maker. And however, do not buy it full price. And if you are intending on buying it at all, then at least get it to 50% discount. Now, the marathon is very, very grindy. The vast majority of people will not get to level 10. And that is by design. Wargaming made it incredibly difficult to get to that tier unless you're playing hours and hours and hours every day. I'm talking like 10 hours a day sort of levels to have any hope of getting to tier to level 10 on the marathon to get this tank for free. So most people will probably get to stage 5, stage 6, stage 7, and then it will become an absolute pain to get to the next one. So yeah. So that's all from me for this one. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and hope you guys found this informative. Hope you guys learned something here. In the comments below, if you guys have bought this tank already, let me know your thoughts on it if you've played it. And if you haven't got it, let me know if you're thinking of getting it. And if you were thinking of getting it and you've decided not to after watching this video, let me know what put you off, or if you were not intending on getting it before and you've decided that you now want to get it because of the video, let me know why. Would love to hear your thoughts down below. Anyway guys, that's all from me. Thanks for watching once again, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace out.